When it comes to hatred against NHL players, it's either unjustified or you have 500,000 Google search results to people who hate them. Some people are hated for being crybabies or extra violent, but some are just hated for being too good. Here are the most hated NHL players. Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux was regarded as one of the best clutch players of his era, but he was also reviled for his ability to get under rival players' skins and for crossing the line into dirty play. During a game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Calgary Flames, one of Lemieux's most memorable incidents occurred when he allegedly bit Calgary forward Jim Paplensky. Lemieux checked Detroit's Chris Draper from behind in 1996, causing Draper to crash face-first into the boards. As a result, he suffered a broken jaw, a broken nose, a shattered cheekbone, and a concussion. It also helped to cement an often hostile rivalry between the Avalanche and the Red Wings for the next decade, with Lemieux receiving a 2-game suspension for his conduct. The bottom line was that the Buckingham, Quebec kid was an agitator, a pest, and frequently played rough, but he was prepared to go to great lengths to help his side win a hockey game. As a result, 4 Stanley Cups were won by 3 separate teams, as well as the rage and hatred of opposing players and fans across the NHL. Chris Pronger. It's easy to see why Chris Pronger was despised in Edmonton. The huge defenseman wanted a trade out of town shortly after helping lead the Oilers to the Stanley Cup final in 2006. The Oilers haven't made the playoffs since, and Edmontonians despise Pronger as a result. Pronger was loathed around the league mostly for the manner he played the game. The 6'6", 210-pound native of Dryden, Ontario, was a strong player who frequently crossed the line and injured opponents. The most memorable incident occurred in March 2008 when Pronger was suspended for 8 games for stomping on Vancouver's Ryan Kesler's leg. Pronger was also suspended by the NHL twice during the 2007 playoffs, once for a hit on Tomas Holmstrom in the Western Conference Final and again in the Stanley Cup Final for a strike to the head of Ottawa's Dean McAmmond. Pronger was suspended 8 times by the NHL before concussions and other problems jeopardized his career. His career may be finished, but he is still regarded as one of the league's most despised players. Marty McSorley. Marty McSorley was always a rough person, a goon, or an enforcer, depending on whom you asked. McSorley was a forward and a defender who excelled at defending teammates, most notably Wayne Gretzky. He was renowned as the Great One's bodyguard and played with him in both Edmonton and Los Angeles. However, McSorley earned a permanent presence on our list with an incident that occurred during his final NHL game. McSorley was suspended indefinitely by the NHL on February 21, 2000, after hitting Vancouver's Donald Brashear in the head with his stick. Brashear sustained a severe concussion. This flagrant assault resulted in criminal assault charges being filed against McSorley. He was given 18 months probation. He never played another NHL game after that. Matthew Cooke. Cooke was a first-rate agitator and a real annoyance. His strategy is to annoy opposing players and force them to retaliate, resulting in power plays for his team. Unfortunately, Cooke's activities have frequently crossed the line, resulting in fines, suspensions, and even the motivation for a rule change. One of Cooke's most notable hits was a blow to the head of Boston's Mark Savard in 2010. Cooke was not suspended, but the incident contributed to the league's decision to ban head blows. After the Savard hit, some of Cooke's teammates, including veteran Bill Guerin, refused to back him up. Cooke was later suspended for a nasty hit from behind on Columbus's Fedor Tyutin and an elbow to the head of Rangers' Ryan McDonough. Cooke swore to modify his ways after those 2 incidents, but he remains a player despised by the majority of fans and many players across the league. Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter was a player that everyone wanted to have on their squad, but no one wanted to play against. He appeared in 1,407 NHL games for the Nordiques, Capitals, and Avalanche, totaling 3,563 penalty minutes. In his NHL career, he had 11 seasons with more than 200 penalty minutes. Hunter's most infamous moment was in Game 6 of the Capitals-Islanders playoff series in 1993. The Islanders' Pierre Turgeon grabbed the puck from Hunter and scored a goal that effectively ended the series. Hunter attacked Turgeon and separated his shoulder a few seconds after the game ended. Hunter was suspended for the first 21 games of the next season, the longest punishment in league history. A punishment that, in my opinion, isn't enough for people who don't subscribe to our channel, so make sure you do. Eddie Shaw. Eddie Shaw enraged 2 generations of hockey players. those who played against him and those who played for him when he subsequently controlled the AHL's Springfield Indians. Shaw was one of the hardest and meanest players of all time. His legendary hit on Ace Bailey from Toronto terminated Bailey's career and nearly killed him. Later, the two exchanged handshakes as Shaw was participating in a benefit game to raise funds for Bailey and his family. He also notably battled two teammates in practice on grudges he harbored against them from their previous teams. Shaw was notorious as the Springfield Indians owner for cutting money and being harsh with his players in practice and when it came to addressing injuries. Sidney Crosby. Few hockey fans would dispute that Sidney Crosby is not one of the top players in the game today, but even fewer would argue that he's the most despised. There are 607,000 results for Sidney Crosby hatred on Google. Most people refer to the Penguins' capital as a whiner, diver, or complainer. There's also a Facebook page called I Hate Sidney Crosby, with over 2,600 likes that feature pictures and plenty of comments from supporters explaining why they loathe Crosby. The simple truth is that fans of the other 29 teams despise Sidney Crosby, most likely out of jealousy. Whatever you think of Crosby, nearly every fan would like to have a player as talented and productive, when healthy, as Sid the Kid on his team. Dave Schultz. In the 1970s, no team was more despised than the Broad Street Bullies, and no player on those Flyers teams was more despised than Dave the Hammer Schultz. Schultz and his colleagues elevated fighting and physical hockey to new heights. In 1974 and 1975, they employed intimidation to defeat more talented hockey teams and win back-to-back Stanley Cups. The Flyers became the NHL's first expansion team to win a championship. He detailed how he would prepare for games by imagining confrontations against opponents' top enforcers while remaining in his hotel room. Schultz was not going to be stopped by the rules or the officials. He didn't always win his fights, but he also didn't back down from them. Schultz led the Flyers to their first title in 1973 to 1974, scoring 20 goals and accruing 348 penalty minutes. He viciously beat up Dale Rolfe in Game 7 of the semi-final against the Rangers, giving the Flyers momentum in a 4-3 triumph. A year later, he set an NHL record with 472 penalty minutes in 76 games as the Flyers won their second consecutive championship. Schultz's NHL career ended with 2,294 penalty minutes in 535 games. In 2009, he was inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame. Ulf Samuelson. For much of his 16-year NHL career, Swedish-born defenseman Ulf Samuelson was the most despised player in the league. According to opposing players, Samuelson frequently went for the knees when he hit, and Mike Modano of the North Stars even accused Ulf of purposefully injuring players. When told he was loathed, Samuelson said, "I don't care, that is my responsibility." While there were other incidents, the most memorable one of Samuelson's bad behavior was in the 1991 Eastern Conference Final against the Bruins when he punched Boston winger Cam Neely in the knees. Neely never healed entirely from his injury and was never the same player again. It elevated Samuelson, who was already reviled in many towns around the league, to the status of public enemy number one among Boston fans. Shawn Avery. During his NHL career, Shawn Avery was the most despised player. He was despised by fans, opponents, and even some of his teammates at times. He was also despised for his on- and off-ice behavior and attitudes. Avery's most memorable off-ice event occurred in 2008 while he was a member of the Dallas Stars. He summoned the media for an unexpected press conference and said that another player was taking his sloppy seconds for dating one of his ex-girlfriends. As a result, he received a long-term suspension and a league mandate that he seeks counseling. Many of his teammates refused to back him up at that moment. On the ice, Avery led the NHL to immediately amend the rules after purposefully lifting his stick to block New Jersey's Martin Brodeur during a playoff game in 2008. Avery turned away from Brodeur and raised his stick, blocking the goalie's vision. Despite the fact that there was no rule against it, the league instantly labeled it unsportsmanlike conduct. Avery retired after the Rangers demoted him to the lower leagues during the 2011-2012 season. The fact that he was so despised throughout the league most likely contributed to his early demise. If you need more reasons to hate these players, we recommend watching this video about the most gruesome moments of the NHL, and let us know in the comments which player you hate the most.